This is the story of a man groomed to replace Mao Zedong, and the night he died in a burning aircraft, fleeing the nation he helped build. According to historians Roderick MacFarquhar and Michael Schoenhals, no one in the People's Republic rose faster or fell harder than Lin Biao, a war hero, a loyal soldier, a man praised in the Little Red Book itself, who would end up branded a traitor. Tonight, in Dictators Files, we open the case of Mao's chosen successor and the mystery that turned him into China's most dangerous ghost. He was born December 5th, 1907, in Hubei, a thin, silent boy with eyes that watched everything. Lin Biao grew up in a collapsing China. Warlords, foreign armies, villages burned, rebuilt, burned again. Historian Roderick MacFarquhar notes that men of Lin's generation were shaped by permanent crisis. Violence wasn't a choice. It was the air they breathed. In 1925, at just 17, Lin joined the communist movement. He didn't shout slogans. He didn't argue ideology. He fought, quietly, efficiently, brutally. By the late 1920s, he was already one of the Red Army's sharpest commanders. According to Britannica, officers called him precise, disciplined, unnervingly calm. During the Long March of 1934 to 35, Lin didn't just follow Mao. He impressed him. Cold, organized, deadly, the perfect revolutionary soldier. Then came the war with Japan. Lin won battles Mao needed. He proved again and again that he could command men and survive. After the communist victory in 1949, Lin became more than a general. He became Mao's weapon. MacFarquhar writes that Mao trusted Lin because he seemed incapable of ambition. A soldier, not a politician, a man who obeyed. But in dictatorships, even obedience can become dangerous. When Defense Minister Peng Dehuai was purged in 1959, Mao elevated Lin to replace him. That promotion changed everything. It moved Lin from the battlefield to the throne room, and the closer he got to Mao, the more fragile his safety became. When the Cultural Revolution erupted in 1966, China became a stage of chaos. Students dragged teachers into the streets. Old books burned. Old beliefs shattered. Young fists raised the Little Red Book like a holy relic. And standing just behind Mao was Lin Biao. According to historians Roderick MacFarquhar and Michael Schoenhals in Mao's Last Revolution, no one worked harder to build Mao's personality cult than Lin. He turned the People's Liberation Army into Mao's choir. Every barracks echoed with quotations. Every soldier drilled with a book in his pocket. Lin pushed one message above all. Mao is the sun. Mao is China. Under Lin's direction, the PLA published 800 million copies of the Little Red Book. It wasn't training. It was worship. By 1968, Mao noticed something. Lin wasn't just loyal, he was useful. And in dictatorships, usefulness is more valuable than honesty. At the Ninth Party Congress in April 1969, Mao made a decision that changed Chinese politics forever. He named Lin Biao his official successor. Not whispered, not implied, announced to the whole country. Historian Michael Schoenhals describes that moment as the peak of Lin's power and the beginning of his danger. because Mao didn't trust anyone. Not even the man he'd just declared his heir. Lin Biao stood next to a ruler whose paranoia only grew with age. Every praise could be a trap. Every victory could be a threat. And soon, Mao began to suspect the man he had raised, the cult Lin built. The devotion he commanded now cast a shadow Mao could feel. A dictator cannot tolerate shadows, only his own. By 1970, the alliance between Mao and Lin was rotting from the inside. Slowly, quietly, like a sealed room running out of air. On paper, Lin was Mao's successor. In reality, the two men no longer trusted each other. Historian Roderick MacFarquhar writes that Mao began to sense danger in Lin's silence. And silence was Lin's only language. The first fracture came at the Lushan Conference in August 1970. A meeting meant to unify the leadership. But it exposed their paranoia instead. Mao pushed for a new state presidency, a move that would place him above all institutions. Lin's allies objected. Mao saw this not as debate, but defiance. The room changed. The air tightened. Everyone felt it. A dictator doesn't hear disagreement. He hears betrayal. Mao struck first. He humiliated Chen Boda, Lin's closest ideological partner, stripping him of authority. Historian Michael Schoenhals describes Chen's fall as a warning shot aimed directly at Lin Biao. Lin understood the message. Mao didn't need to accuse him. He only needed to remove those around him, one by one. Meanwhile, Lin's wife, Ye Kun, and his son, Lin Liguo, began to panic. Documents later reviewed by historians suggest they believed Mao was preparing to arrest Lin. Night after night, Ye Kun reportedly told her husband, "Mao is coming for us." Inside their compound, fear hardened into planning. Inside Mao's circle, suspicion hardened into certainty. Two forces now moved toward collision, Mao's tightening paranoia and Lin's rising terror. Historian Michael Schoenhals summarized this phase with one sentence. By late 1970, the relationship resembled two men watching each other with guns half drawn. In dictatorships, the moment trust dies, someone must disappear, and the clock was already ticking. By early 1971, the storm had a name, a code name. Project 571, a homophone in Chinese for armed uprising. The official Chinese narrative claims this was Lin Biao's coup plan, a blueprint to assassinate Mao, seize Beijing, and take command of the state. But history is not that simple, and the truth is far from settled. According to MacFarquhar and Schoenhals, the so-called Project 571 outline was drafted by Lin Liguo, Lin's son, and a circle of young Air Force officers, not by Lin Biao himself. They wrote of sabotaging Mao's train routes, ambushing his motorcade, seizing radio stations, capturing political rivals. The document reads like a desperate fantasy, not a realistic military strike. Historians note it lacked logistics, allies, and military feasibility. And here is where the story darkens. Some scholars argue Lin Biao never even saw the document. Others claim Mao's security services expanded or edited it after Lin's death to justify the purge that followed. Historian Michael Schoenhals warns that many surviving papers were handled by too many political hands to be trusted. But one thing is clear. By the spring of 1971, Lin's family believed Mao was preparing to eliminate him. Ye Kun, Lin's wife, kept detailed notes describing fear, surveillance, and late-night meetings. In one entry, cited by later researchers, she wrote, "We are trapped. There is no safe path." Whether Project 571 was a real coup, a defensive plan, or a later fabrication, it created only one outcome: panic, intense, spreading like fire inside Lin's compound. By September, Mao was traveling the country, inspecting troops, searching for disloyalty. MacFarquhar writes that Mao spoke of hidden enemies waiting to strike. Everyone knew who he meant. The walls around Lin Biao were closing in. Mao's paranoia and Lin's fear were now moving in parallel lines, straight toward catastrophe. All that remained was the night escape, the final chapter in the fall of Mao's chosen successor, September 12th, 1971. A night soaked in fear. Mao was on the move again, touring southern China, inspecting troops, probing loyalty. Historian Roderick MacFarquhar writes that Mao's circle had already begun discussing preventive action against Lin. Whether Lin knew the details or only sensed the danger, one fact is certain: everyone in his home was terrified. According to later testimonies collected by Chinese investigators, Lin's wife Ye Kun became frantic. She believed Mao was preparing to arrest or kill the entire family. Inside Lin's guarded villa at Beidai, the atmosphere turned poisonous. Phones were tapped. Guards watched guards. Servants whispered that trucks had been seen near the compound at night. At 10 p.m., Ye Kun reportedly demanded an answer. "We leave tonight, or we die tomorrow." Lin Biao, exhausted and ill, said almost nothing. Historian Michael Schoenhals notes that Lin had become passive to the point of collapse, suffering from chronic health problems and possibly drug sedation. But his son, Lin Liguo, wasn't passive. He panicked. He ordered the guards to prepare transport. Documents later released by Mongolia show that vehicles left the villa between 11 p.m. and midnight, heading toward a military airbase at Shanhaiguan. This was not a carefully planned escape. It was chaos in motion. At the airbase, the crew of a Hawker Siddeley Trident 1E jet was awakened at gunpoint. No flight plan, no destination, just a command: start the engines. According to Soviet forensic records, Lin Biao was carried into the plane, weak, barely conscious. His wife waited by the steps, shouting orders. His son pushed the crew to take off immediately. In dictatorships, escapes never look heroic. They look desperate. At 12:32 a.m., early September 13th, the jet lifted off the runway, tires still hot, engines screaming. It banked north, toward the Soviet border, toward safety, or toward whatever fate awaited a fallen heir. What no one on board knew was this: the fuel tanks weren't full. The pilots had no navigation equipment ready. They were flying blind, in the dark, through restricted airspace, with the most wanted man in China on board. Mao's security forces woke up minutes later. They found the villa empty. Lin gone, documents scattered, vehicles missing. One message was sent to Mao's circle: the vice chairman is fleeing. It was the moment Mao's paranoia became reality. The successor he feared had vanished into the night. And the plane carrying Lin Biao was already doomed. September 13th, 1971. 2:30 a.m. Mongolian airspace. The Trident jet carrying Lin Biao sliced through the night with no radio, no clearance, and no realistic chance of reaching the Soviet border. Historians who later reviewed the Mongolian crash files described the flight path as erratic, drifting, lost. The aircraft had taken off too quickly. No proper inspection, no navigation setup, no refueling. It was a flying coffin. At roughly 2:20 a.m., Mongolian radar stations detected the unauthorized aircraft. It was low, unstable, struggling. 10 minutes later, it vanished from the screen. The wreckage was found near Underkhan, a desolate stretch of steppe east of Ulaanbaatar. According to Mongolian investigation reports summarized by multiple historians, the jet had run out of fuel, clipped the ground, and exploded. The fire burned so hot the metal curled like paper. Inside, they found 9 bodies, burned, unrecognizable. Later, Soviet forensic teams used bone fragments and surviving personal items to confirm identities. Lin Biao, Ye Kun, Lin Liguo, and 6 crew members forced to fly the doomed plane. There were no survivors, no escape, no last words, just silence across the empty grasslands. While the Mongolian report concluded fuel exhaustion caused the crash, historians note something chilling. Beijing remained silent for 12 hours. Inside Zhongnanhai, Mao was informed discreetly. Those present later recalled one detail. Mao did not look surprised. When the government finally announced Lin's death, the language was cold. Lin Biao betrayed the party, attempted to flee, and perished in a plane crash. A lifetime of service erased in a single sentence. The man once hailed as Mao's closest comrade-in-arms was now branded China's most dangerous traitor, and the wreckage near Underkhan, twisted metal glowing under the Mongolian dawn, became the grave of Mao's chosen successor. When Lin Biao's body burned in the Mongolian steppe, his name began to burn inside China. By dawn, Mao's inner circle moved with cold precision. Homes raided, officers detained, files sealed, phones cut. Historian Michael Schoenhals writes that the state reacted not with shock, but with calculation. They knew exactly what must happen next. Erase Lin Biao, the hero, the marshal, the successor, everything. Within days, propaganda teams arrived at military bases. Posters with Lin's face were slashed. Photographs were pulled from albums. School books quietly updated. In the People's Republic, history is not recorded. It is managed. According to MacFarquhar, the purge swept through the PLA like a disease. Generals vanished into interrogation rooms. Officers were forced to denounce the man they had once sworn to follow. One veteran later recalled, "Yesterday, he was our pride. Today, he was a ghost we weren't allowed to remember." Mao delivered the final blow in 1972, labeling Lin a traitor, a counter-revolutionary, a schemer. No funeral, no ashes returned, no public mourning, even Lin's wartime victories. The battles that shaped the communist triumph were reassigned to others in official histories. But historians refused to let the truth die. MacFarquhar and Schoenhals argued that the party's narrative was designed for political survival, not accuracy. Others pointed out contradictions in the Project 571 materials, sudden shifts in official reports, altered timelines. A dictatorship may bury a man. It may bury his story, but it cannot bury the questions. Why did Mao fear Lin? Why did Lin run? And what truly happened inside that plane? We will never know every detail, but we know this. Lin Biao rose higher than any soldier in Mao's China. And when Mao felt threatened, he erased him without hesitation. In a dictatorship, loyalty is not a shield. It is bait, used until the ruler no longer needs you, then discarded. And so the man who helped build Mao's myth became the man Mao turned into a warning.